and take care of the all the preliminaries, and hopefully by that time Annette will join.
Is Miss Trout
Okay.
with us?
Yes.
Yes. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Miss Trout.
Good morning, Lori. How are you?
I'm very well. Happy Memorial Day.
Thank
Hello.
you.
Okay, everybody, I'd like to call this meeting of the Canutillo Independent School District Board of Trustees meeting. It's May 26, 2020. Meeting starting at 10:03. At this time, if you want to go ahead, I guess we can say the Pledge of Allegiance as we sit here. I guess I don't have a flag, but
I do have one here at home.
okay.
As
Blanca,
do I.
you want to recite the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge
I
allegiance
pledge allegiance
to
To
the
the
flag
to the flag of the
of
United
the United
States
States
of America and to the republic
for
for
which it
which it
stands,
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
honor
Okay.
the
The Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Lori.
I
Blanca.
thought we were all supposed to. I'm sorry if.
No, it's okay. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, Sonia, you want to call roll?
Yes, sir. Ms. Brigham. Mr. Coronado.
Here.
Mr. Payan.
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Present.
Mrs. Searles.
Here.
Mrs. Trout.
present.
And Mrs. Iglesias.
Here.
Miss Sonia, am I correct that Miss Brigham will be joining us? She's just having technical difficulties?
I believe that is correct.
Okay.
Okay, the next item, I guess, vision statement is Mondo. You want to read the first one?
Yes, sir. So on the vision statement, how do I was here?
Mary, you read the second one?
Yes. What page is it on? Oh, here it is. Okay.
AJ.
Page 8.
So the vision is, thank you, Mr. Payan. Canutillo ISD is a premier district preparing tomorrow's best today with innovative future-focused learning opportunities for every student.
Mission
Mary?
statement. Unmute myself. Okay.
Our mission is to create rigorous student-centered classrooms which develop future-ready students to compete
This
in
is
a
Annette.
global economy and thrive in a multicultural world.
Okay, thank you. Sonia?
Yes, sir. Item 2, Board of Trustee Business.
This is Annette. Can you hear me?
Hi,
Yes.
Ms. Annette.
Good morning, Miss Brigham.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Item 2, Board of Trustee Business. A, discussion and possible action regarding the Canutillo ISD Board of Trustees legislative agenda and priorities.
Dr. Galaviz, you want to address that? And
Right now, we're putting together a legislative agenda regarding COVID-19. What we're expecting from the legislative, it's due, I think, in July. And so we're just taking ideas so we can put it together from the board. One of the ideas was to make sure that the funding stays neutralize the funding. So we expect the same funding next year. My personal one is it's time to change the standards and the high school graduation requirements. If we want workforce ready kids, then a lot of these classes they take in high school are very redundant and not useful. I think another legislative agenda is not to have accountability next year, since we're still going to be dealing with this pandemic. That should also be, or change the accountability. Talking to staff is having it monthly with those state standards if you're not going to change the standards. But again, this is a great time to really be creative and innovative but allowing us to be without holding us to the minutes and the attendance. That's another thing legislative is we need to know what the commissioner and governor are planning when it comes to minutes and attendance. Are you still going to hold us accountable given that we're still in this pandemic? But again, you have Mr. Rodriguez, who is a national board member, and so he probably has more insight.
Mando, can I interrupt us just a minute? I'm sorry. I was supposed to have read the script to start the meeting. If
Oh,
you don't
yes,
mind,
sir.
I'd like to go over that right now.
Yes, sir.
On March 16th, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic and video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus COVID-19. In accordance with those suspended rules, we certify the following. Notice of this meeting has been posted online for at least 72 hours. Although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by telephone call and internet access. 2, we are meeting by use of both telephone, conference call, online access, and through use of an email link for questions. 3, if a member of the public submitted written comments in advance, the board president or a member of the administration will read the comments into the record before and during the board's consideration of that item. If you would like to provide comment at a future meeting conducted by video conference or telephone call, please follow instructions on the meeting notice. 4, all other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practicable. 5, an audio recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. 6, we apologize in advance for any unforeseeable difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate unprecedented conditions. 7, if you have any questions about these suspended laws, please call the Office of the Attorney General at 888-672-6787 or by email at toma@oag.texas.gov. Thank you. Apologize for the delay.
Board
I'm
Vice
sorry,
President Payan, I do have a question for you.
Go ahead.
We are getting questions from the community already, not specifically about this topic, but how do you want me to do that? In sequential, even though they're not pertaining to the topic?
Right now, if it's not yet pertaining to the topic, wait.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Payan,
go ahead.
I have a question, please, on that. We do not have, there's nowhere on this agenda for public comment. And I think that we have to by law have it, so for whatever that's worth.
Open forum's been suspended during this time. So we can take them after the meeting versus having, this isn't a open forum. This isn't an open house. We have an agenda. Let's stick to the agenda.
Vice President Yan?
Mr. Rodriguez, you had a comment about the legislative agenda, legislative advocacy or resolution? We can't hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute. I guess one of the things looking at, so TASB, the Texas Association of School Boards, is actually looking to have their resolution submitted by the June 15th. So Dr. Galaviz, I know there's talk about having a special board meeting. Hopefully it's before that June 15th deadline, so that way we could submit those resolutions.
Good idea.
And more specific in regards to state issues, you mentioned some of the state issues that you were looking at, whether it's with the commissioner or whether it's some of the guidelines. So hopefully we could get those resolutions by then. But the other thing that I want to look at is making sure we address the federal as well as the state. So the federal, some of the things, and I guess anybody else could throw in ideas, but right now we currently have a Senator Markey has 44 co-sponsors to introduce emergency E-rate legislation. And that emergency E-rate right now is at $4 billion for emergency funding through the E-rate program to help connect elementary and secondary students and library patrons who lack broadband access for learning. So I'm hoping that we could sort of get that push. We know, especially within our community, the lack of access and ability to have access to internet is something important. So that's one of the issues that I want to make sure that we focus on a federal federal issue. And then the other, of course, is IDEA. We know that IDEA is critical for our special needs students, and it's never been funded where it should be. Not much less at the level it was promised. So I think having them fund IDEA is critical, especially in these times, and how we address some of those special needs students through distance learning. And then the other is, I think one of the discussions that I've had with some of my colleagues across the state and across the country is looking at somehow a 2-year stabilization. We know that over the next year, it's going to be a little bit difficult. And then we see probably 2 years out that hopefully looking at 2-year stabilization money as we deal with this. It's not just going to be this year, it'll probably be the following year. So those are some of the federal issues that we're looking at. And I think Dr. Galaviz could touch on more some of the state issues when he was talking about the graduation requirements and that. Also looking at facilities funding, and then special population programs funding, and hopefully I think just trying to get a clear message from our region to our legislators. That was another issue. I believe one of the state reps that's running for Senate had sent out an email to all of us to help guide the legislative delegation on some of the important issues. So making sure we rely some of these state issues. I think that's it for now, but if anybody else has anything else to add to it, there's a lot of state issues that I think Dr. Galaviz could look at: the TASB legislative agenda, the IDRA legislative agenda, and some of the other public education legislative agendas. So.
I do.
Blanca, go ahead.
Thank you, Mando. Thank you, Mr. Payan, Vice President. I do have 3 priorities. Them are very short, but it's based about a little bit what you said, Mando. And my first one is that the school districts are entitled to the amount of funding based on the student enrollment, whether the education is conducted at home or in school during crises such as COVID-19. What I'm seeing is I'm afraid that they cut off the revenue to our school districts because the kids that are taking instruction at home. So what I would like to put in my legislative priority, it should be the same. Even the kids that are attending at home, in school district or at home, that the funding should be equal amount of funding. And this is because the school districts depend on this revenue and thus not create an operational imbalance. So this is my first priority. And my second is mental health and stigma, free programs through the public education that raise awareness and prevention to help improve the lives of individuals affected by mental illness during this COVID-19 or a regular basis. And this is, like it says, the statement of reason is whereas approximately 1.5 chronic mental illness begins by the age of 14. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among young adults in the United States. So for me, it's this very good priority that I would like, please guys, to help me support this for mental health. And the third one is to provide full funding for special education. Of course, educating a child with special education is more costly, and providing the special resources and appropriate programs for these needs. These are my 3 priorities.
So,
Okay,
Ms.
I just,
Trout,
if everybody will just submit those to Dr. Galaviz, that way they can develop them in a formal manner.
Okay,
So we can submit them to as a formal form that we have here in our
Mr.
board
Chair,
book. Ms.
that's Ms. Brigham, I'm sorry.
Ms. Brigham, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to submit, and I can do that today. The one thing I wanted to make sure, I was gonna check with Ms. Trout on exactly what you were saying about the funding. In the waiver that they're gonna submit, they do have it called instructing, but if we're instructing, but we're still open. And so we still get the funding on that. So I do think we're gonna get the state funding regardless, but I do like the sustained funding for 2 years. So I will submit my stuff to Dr. Galvez today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Sonia, next item.
Yes, sir. Item B, discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of a delegate assembly representative and an alternate.
I'm sorry, Dr. Galaviz, you had a comment.
no, I just want to say hi to Ms. Brigham. I get to see her.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm
okay.
finally got 3 devices and I got it working.
Okay, Sonia, go ahead and finish reading that up again.
Yes, sir. Discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of a delegate assembly representative and an alternate.
Anybody have any input on that, or how do you want to do that?
Well, we've been doing this previously, Ms. Brigham
Yes,
and myself. Do you remember the last time we went there? This is a pretty active, and we need to definitely to advocate for the ones that we think is going to be a good resolutions. Of course, supporting the ones or changing or amending the resolutions that we don't think that them are good for the school districts or public education.
So, Mr. Payan, if I might, I'd like to move to nominate Mrs. Trout and Mrs. Brigham as the representative and the alternate for this year.
Okay, any other suggestions?
Can you clarify on your motion who would be the
Oh, Ms.
representative?
Trout for the delegate representative and Ms. Brigham for the alternate. I think that's what Ms. Trout said they did last year. Is that correct, Ms. Trout?
That's correct, Ms.
Yeah, they obviously did a good job that way, so I'd like to, that'd be my motion.
Okay,
I'll
any
second it.
second to that book? Okay, Mando, second. Sonia, take a roll.
Yes, sir. Ms. Brigham,
yes,
Mr. Payan,
Yes,
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Searles,
Yes,
Mrs. Trout,
Yes?
and Mrs. Iglesias.
Yes.
Item number 3, budget services, a budget presentation. Board Vice President, can I read community input?
sure, go ahead.
Good morning. This is from Yvette Mueller, I believe. Good morning. I was looking at the draft of the 2021 budget workshop presentation, and I didn't see any special allocation for e-learning enhancements for this school year. My main concern is the Google Classroom platform and teacher instruction facilitation during the last 8 weeks of school were not effective in helping my kids continue their learning. It was ineffective and inconsistent. If we are going to continue this e-learning process as a backup or even part of our curriculum in the current situation with COVID-19, we need a separate platform that can be used by all students on any device. I have seen and used several homeschooling platforms that were better than what was provided via Google Classroom. While we did our best with what we had to pivot quickly during the pandemic, we need better oversight and preparation for the future in order to accomplish that. It needs to be allocated in the budget for the next school year. And here are more comments, Board Vice President. My name is Elizabeth Marquez. My son currently attends Aldarete Middle School. My husband and I have noticed and experienced a positive change in our son's academic development compared to the academic development we noticed and experienced at Canutillo Middle School when our son was a sixth grader. We attribute our son's successful progress to his teachers, paraprofessionals, and most importantly, to Assistant Principal Andrea Esparza. For this reason, my husband and I would like to nominate Mrs. Esparza for the position of AMS Principal because of her dedication to the school and to our children. Out of personal experience, I have seen her dedication to the ISC unit, especially the great support she has given the special ed department. Teachers like Ms. Medlock, we do believe Mrs. Esparza has the best interest for our children, even when our children have any type of disability or disorders. She works directly with the teachers so that our children can feel comfortable and accommodated. Thank you so much for your attention. One
Sonia,
more. Yes, sir.
Sonia, I'm gonna stop you right now.
Okay,
I want to go over the presentation. And if
okay.
it deals with the budget, then we'll talk about it. Or we'll
Okay.
listen to them.
All righty, Dr. G, there's more community input like that. All right, thank you.
Go
At
ahead,
this time, I
Enrique.
guess if we want to continue with the next item is a budget presentation, I'd like to make a comment that I'd like to limit everybody to at least a minimum 2 minutes, maximum 2 minutes for any discussion on any item by any one board member. If we will, go ahead, Ms.
Excuse me,
Pekarsky.
Mr. Payan, by board operating procedures, we get 3 minutes.
Okay, we'll make it 3 minutes then.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Payan,
Yes.
just real quick, I wanted to, in regards to Ms. Gomez, do you know where those questions are? Are they on the YouTube live or what? I just want to make sure that I'm getting the input from the community while I'm looking at it.
So let me turn that over to the PIO department. What's happening is they're sending emails regarding the board meeting, and then I get them through them. So it could be any platform. It could have been the YouTube Live, directly to the CISD board email that we provided to them. But
Steve,
these are specifically for this
Don't-
agenda.
Steve, are you
Mr.
on?
Payan, with that said, I don't have access to any of that. So I'll need Ms. Gomez to read it on the front end if y'all are able to read that while we're discussing the budget. That leaves me out.
We all don't have access to it, and that's why I was gonna ask
Correct.
Mr. Blanco. Steve, are you around?
Yes, I'm here.
What's the best approach for this?
It's up to the board. If they relate to the agenda item, that was the plan, was to read them when you have the agenda item come up. I don't see them, so I don't know whether or not they relate to a particular agenda item. I don't have access to them either. Someone there at the administration that has access to them will need to review them and say, okay, this relates to this agenda item, we're going to read it. If it's not, then it's just a general comment and we don't have open forum so that the administration can respond to those comments later.
Mr. Chair, I would recommend that if we could get that read it in, just so that way we get a better perspective and ask any of those questions.
I agree.
Okay.
However, according to TEA guidelines or TEA is that the comments come after the discussion before you take a vote. So you do the item, you have the presentation, you have the discussion, and then Ms. Gomez says, are there any, we have comments regarding this item?
Okay, I'm
That
okay with
was
that.
the
I just
protocol.
want to make sure that we get the voices of our community heard before we take an action on that.
I agree with Mr. Rodriguez.
Good enough. Then we'll take the comments after the discussion. Ms. Pekarsky.
Good morning, Vice President Payan, members of the board, Dr. Galaviz. I'm here today to give you an update on the budget, just to let you know where we are. Ms. Pulley is in our state training. Our budget training from the state happens to be at the same time right now. So if she would be here otherwise, but right now, I'm just going to take you through our presentation. And I believe the PIO is going to share the screen. Thank you. Okay, so these are our budget priorities, the same as the last time we presented to you. The balanced budget, the reading academies are included in the budget. And then the funding change, moving the curriculum instruction people from grant positions over to local. We were also tasked with the job of adding in the 2% package for local funds, which came out to $840,000. That does include the stipends and the adjustments.
The 2%.
At 2%, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Picard.
The facilities master plan, we did not budget that for next year because we funded it this year out of the sale of the land proceeds. And
I
then
have a question there, Ms. Pekarsky. Where's the other 146,000 coming from?
the whole amount, the 246 came out of the land sale proceeds.
Okay, but it's just showing here a 100,000. So we took the whole 246 from it?
Yes, ma'am. Originally, we did not know when we started the budget process how much the facilities master plan was going to cost.
And I have a question. Have we filled out disclosure statements on that? I know I haven't received one.
Oh, I didn't get one.
No. I'm sorry, I'm not sure which disclosure
Maybe
statement.
Mr. Blanco?
Yes, ma'am.
Have we filled out disclosure statements on the facilities master plan? The two companies, I think Root is the local architect that'll be working with us, and the ones from Phoenix. I haven't received a disclosure statement on that.
Are you talking about the CIQ forms or are you talking about the vendor conflict form?
Vendor conflict, both of them.
I don't know. Purchasing would have that information. The board CIQ and conflict form is a board obligation. If you notice a vendor that is doing business with the district, which may pose a conflict with that board member's role as a trustee, that board member is responsible for notifying the district of that conflict and then abstaining from any vote. Whether or not the vendors have completed their forms, I wouldn't know. The purchasing department would have to tell us.
I was just concerned about the board members.
Yeah, I have not had any questions directed to me about whether an individual board member has a conflict or not. The board members should identify themselves if they do, and they would know who the vendor is, and then they can appropriately fill out those forms.
And I would like to see that happen. I have information that we have a board member that has connections to the office of Root, the local architects. And so I think it would be appropriate if we'd fill that out. And could you have that done, Dr. Galavis, please, that we as board members fill that out on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, the annual payment for the maintenance tax note will be budgeted in fiscal 22.
I saw that.
The other items that we had for consideration were, for this current fiscal year, we received the fast growth allotment. But for next year, we did not fall into that category. However, they did create a formula transition grant, which we're not sure if it's going to be temporary, permanent, or what, but it is basically took the place of our fast growth at 2.4 million. And then also there's an excess in the healthcare fund. We have spoken with Mr. Randy and discussed the state of the healthcare fund. And the projected fund balance at the end of this year will be 3.8 million. Their optimum balance, which he is requesting, is 1.9 million. So that leaves us a projected surplus of 1.9.
I have a question about that, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yes, Ms. Pekoski, thank you. What I'm the question I had about is exactly the excess in the fund balance and the funding for the health. What I was just going to, is that 840,000, which is you put in your budget priorities, that's already been taken. And then I looked at on page, I think it was page 422, it had 1,000, 1 million something. So you're saying, what was the figure you're saying minus the 840? Can you give me that figure, ma'am?
I'm saying that the projected fund balance at the end of this year will
Yes.
be 3.8 million.
Okay, so that 3.8, now you're gonna subtract the 840,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we're still talking of an excess of approximately 3 million, is that correct? Más o menos.
Of
2.7.
1.9 million.
1.9.
So
Okay, thank you. And so my question, and I guess what I'm trying to say, and Ms. Pekoski, is that we need, we want to keep it as healthy as our consultant is telling us. So, because I remember we increased all our burden to the district and to the employees because of an error. So I just want to make sure that we have a very healthy balance so we don't have to go and charge the district more and charge the employees more.
yes, ma'am. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing the healthcare holiday instead of bringing a reduction in the healthcare costs.
Okay.
So this will just be temporary.
That's excellent. I just wanted to double check that and make sure I understood that. Thank you so much, Mr. Paskey. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Everybody, for the record, I'm joining the meeting back end. I've finished with my court hearing.
Okay. Sergio, you take over.
You can finish this item, Sal, and then I'll take over after you're in the middle of this item.
Okay. And Ms. Pekarsky, go ahead. Continue.
Okay. So historical data, we have not made a change here. Basically, what we discussed last time was that we took the current students and incremented them 1 year and kept the incoming grade the same, just to be on the conservative side. Next. The other thing is that the attendance, we're looking at 95%.
Yeah.
And we know that the district can do at least 96, but since we don't know how things are going to go next year, we're going to keep it at 95 for now.
Good idea.
Okay, and then these are just the numbers by campus showing you what we were expecting.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Ms. Pekoski, do you have, and I know this is probably just a wag, do you have any idea of that we might be losing enrollment because of COVID?
You mean a swag? I don't have a
Okay.
guess.
Okay, that's fine, dear. I just didn't know if any of if we got people disenrolled from schools. That's all.
Well,
Dr.
that's one of the
Galaviz, do you have any input on that?
No, I mean, it goes back to that crystal ball analogy.
Well, get it out.
You know, having a crystal ball and again, as we know, families have choices. And now that it goes back to Miss Trout's first priority about making sure that we still have the funding regardless if kids want to stay at home, because if parents are going to be afraid to send their kids to school. So as long as we can still maintain that enrollment, if you will, but I'll get my crystal ball out.
I appreciate it. Thank you, kind sir.
Go ahead, Ms. Pekarsky.
Okay, so the
Mr.
next
Chair,
slide.
Mr. Chair, may I make a comment?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right. Guys, the thing is that there is a possibility that we will lose some of the kids that if for some reason the state says everybody goes back to school, obviously
Yes,
we'll still be able to try to get that child through long distance learning and get the attendance, but we may end up losing them depending on where how the state goes. But the other side of the coin is we may end up gaining some students because some of the private schools are having their own financial
difficult.
problems and difficulties. So we may inherit some of those kids coming to us.
Good point.
And not only that, some private school parents, they're not going to pay to do online.
Exactly, and that's going to
Exactly.
cost them money. So,
Or maybe the economical situation for the parents, since they didn't work during this COVID-19, they couldn't be afforded, to pay private schools. Right?
All
Good
those
point.
issues, all those issues.
All those issues.
I guess your crystal ball will have to take all of that into account, Dr. Galaviz.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Cars.
Okay, so this slide just shows that for this year, that we had, it was the first year of our tax compression where we went from $1.17 down to $1.06.
Mhm.
And then on the next slide,
$6.
it's showing that this will be the second year of
Right.
our compression, and we'll show you how our tax rate was calculated in another slide.
Okay.
This is the thing that everyone is focused on right now, is that local property collections, as they decrease, the state is supposed to apply additional aid. So next slide. These are our property tax values. Now the state is estimating that they're going to grow at 4%. And as you can see from the numbers here, we have consistently grown far in advance of that. We have not received our certified values. They'll be coming into us in July. But based on the April numbers, we've done our calculations and we're going to go with a 6% increase. And the higher the increase in the property.
Ms. Pekarsky,
Yes, sir.
excuse my interruption. Ms. Searles, weren't the Central Appraisal District having some input as to whether they would increase the property tax values?
Yes, sir. Residential will stay the same unless you have new construction, and everything else will be appraised accordingly. So residential is going to stay the same.
Okay.
Whatever your value was last year, that'll be your value this year. Don't
So how does
mistake
this-
that with that'll be your property bill, because we're the ones who set the tax rate.
Right.
But businesses will continue. The state has said that you will go out, everything will be on time, the property will be appraised, and the values will be set out. So businesses will be appraised at the value, having no issue with COVID-19 whatsoever. But residential will not. They're going to be very kind this year. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
How does that impact us here, Mrs. Pekarsky?
Well, that's why we're only looking at 6%, because as she mentioned, it will be residential new construction. And there's been quite a bit of that, as well as new businesses.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is our tax rate. You see our golden pennies, copper pennies, and then the compression based on our 6% estimate. We cannot lower the tax rate without a penalty, and we cannot raise it without a collection. But our actual tax rate will be calculated by.
I can't understand you, Ms. Pekarsky. You're breaking up.
I'm sorry.
You're breaking up. I can't understand what you're saying.
Okay, this is our tax rate. The calculation, we've been working with the Equity Center. The more our property values increase, the lower our tax rate will go. So TEA has told us that they will let us know what our tax rate will be in August.
Okay.
Time for us to post it and then have it adopted in September. So these are our how our local tax revenues were calculated. And so you see that the tax rate is lower than it was last year,
Yes.
yielding less revenues.
Mm-hmm.
But we did take the values from April, which we received from the CAD, and
Okay.
decrease them by 4%. And then the collections, you know, we normally collect 100% of our taxes.
Uh-huh.
This year, we're at 95%.
Oh, okay.
Just in case everybody's thinking that maybe next year we
Yes.
won't be able to collect all of our
Right.
taxes.
I get it.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then for the campuses, the reductions that you see in the secondary is because we broke out 340,000 for athletics. Coach Brooks asked to have his own budget unit so that he could better manage the athletic fields and equipment. And so now he will show up under departments as opposed to under the campuses. AMS received a new math teacher, which is why you don't see them in the negative, but they have a very slight increase. The increases for the elementary campuses are mainly due to the additional pre-K and kindergarten personnel that we added this current year.
Why the reduction in Garcia Elementary?
Their enrollment.
Enrollment.
Yeah, last year we had anticipated additional students, and
Okay.
so this year they received a decrease down to the current projections.
The
Okay.
actual-
The other one is summer school. Summer school had been over budgeted, and so this year we reduced it down to close to what closer to actual.
Because you were having summer school at Garcia?
No, I'm sorry, those two are not related.
Oh, okay,
Garcia,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
That's
Garcia.
fine, I understand.
Okay. Any other questions here?
Summer school, you are talking, Ms. Pekarsky, is this for every campuses or?
Well, there's a group that meets from curriculum and they determine which campuses they're going to use for summer school. So this is not this summer, this will be next summer.
Oh, okay. They decide. Thank you.
Okay, the next slide just shows our function 11 instruction, because we always want to keep a focus on how we're funding the classrooms. And here it showed a decrease, but that's mainly due to the healthcare. As you can imagine, we are mostly staffed by teachers, and with the holiday, that function received a reduction, but only because of the healthcare, mainly due to the healthcare reduction.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Ms.
I thank you, sir. Martha, I don't understand that. So I'm sorry, because you know what I'm seeing is 35,751,688, and why was there a decrease? Why would that be when we have an overage in the healthcare? I don't get that. Can you explain that to me, please?
Yes, ma'am. In the healthcare fund, there is a surplus fund balance.
Yes.
The district is going to take a healthcare holiday, which means that for 2 months, we're not going to pay the healthcare fund the premiums from our employees. And so that's what makes up that 840,000 for the general fund. So since we're not having that expense on the general fund, and we're not having the revenue, they're not having the revenue on the healthcare fund, we're not having an expense on the general fund, and therefore our budget is lower because we're not going to experience that.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I had to have it explained.
Mr. Chair, I have a question, please.
Go ahead, Ms. Searles.
Ms. Pekarsky, what I'm hearing from you is the healthcare holiday is has nothing to do with a benefit to the employee. It has to do with the benefit to our funding.
Right.
Is
Well,
that correct?
The general fund pays $623, I believe, per
Mhm.
month per.
Per
So
month employee, right?
But
for
it
2 months,
won't, this will not be a benefit to the employee whatsoever. They're not going to see,
That's for our funding.
the employee will not notice anything.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. That
That's
was
why
the,
we have a holiday.
Thank you.
okay.
The next slide shows our administrative cost ratio, which of course that is something that we're still working on. This year, legal fees increased, one of which is the Equity Center that's helping us decipher the funding and the tax rate and those other related issues. The next slide shows the total. So the estimated revenues for the general fund. Last year, well, actually for this year, this current year that we're in, our estimated actual expenditures are 63,881,000. So this 62,281,000 is approximately $1.6 million less, which is 2.9%.
Could you please restate that?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. The current year,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to finish somewhere around 63,881,000. Next
Okay.
year's budget is at 62,281,000, which is a reduction of approximately 1.6 million
Okay.
or 2.5%.
Okay.
And then you're also showing you the optimum fund balance. Our
Yes.
target, wait, hold on, PIO. Our target was the 15,570,000 to get to 90 days. And we're expecting to finish this year at 94 days. I know someone had asked me that question previously. And so that would leave us with possibly 98 days at the end of fiscal 21. And so this is just more of a cushion. The budget that I had to leave this morning to come to this meeting, they were talking about, once again, the state using our funding or our payments over the summer to balance their budget. So more likely than not, we won't be getting our payments on time. And if that happens, that's where this fund balance comes in to carry us until they make that payment.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so this is just a graphical, on the next slide, just shows you in the graph form what the unassigned fund balance looks like. And that's the number that we're focused on rather than the total fund balance, which would include food service. And then those items in the assigned column are just those which are funded this year, which may not get completed, and then get pushed out to a future year. So usually we set that money aside so that project can still move forward. Food service. The estimated budget for this year, they're going to have a slight decrease. He's estimating like possibly an $81,000 loss. But as you can see for his fund balance, and actually I have more updated numbers than what's on your slide. His maximum 90 days is 1.3 million. So that's his maximum. Where for us, it's our optimum. For him, it's a maximum. So he should not exceed that.
Oh, good then.
He has redone his, since this presentation was sent out, he's redone his numbers. And for the fiscal year 20, this current year, he believes he'll be at 115 days.
Okay.
So he will still have he'll still be on a spending plan next year, which will include increasing the quality of the food and possibly upgrading some more of the cafeterias.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Ms. Brigham.
Ms. Pekoski, thank you so much for that, that we're going to have 115 days. Dr. Galavis and Ms. Pekoski, could you give them a thumbs up? They're doing excellent, and the fact that we're still having a fund balance and they're improving is just amazing. Thank you very much to everyone.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to resound to that they've done a phenomenal job feeding our kids, doing it right, healthy meals, and having a fund balance that looks like this. We're so blessed and fortunate, so thank you.
Definitely. So do I.
Yeah.
Agreed.
We have new appliances and cafeterias, and new updates as well.
Yes, isn't that great?
Yes, this is nice. So congratulations to Marco and his staff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course, Mr. Commissioner.
Go ahead, Ms. Sikarsky.
Okay, next slide is the debt fund. The debt service fund always is on a balanced fund, and any excess funds that are received always go to our financial advisor to make an extra payment on our debt service. And we're not expecting any change in that tax rate. So this is the one on the next slide will be coming to you next month for approval. As you know, information is coming in daily. The funding templates are changing, information on CARES Act and other grants and what's going to happen and all that is being calculated. And so we'll be bringing you back another budget presentation next month for you to actually approve.
Good.
I do have a question over there, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Trout.
Ms. Pekarski, in social work services on line number 32 is adopted budget. So it says 37. This is per student at projected enrollment. This is 37 students. This is 37. Can you please help me to understand?
Yes, ma'am. That's the budgeted cost divided by the projected number of students. So the enrollment is estimated at 6,201. So if you take the amount budgeted in the 2021 proposed budget and divide it by 6,201, that's how much we spend per student. If of course we were to spend it on every student.
Okay.
Okay, it's good. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Cyril.
Ms. Pekarski, I don't know if you want to answer this today, if there's just a few, or if there's more, maybe you could put it in Thursday packet. But looking at function 71, our debt service, could you tell us who we are currently indebted to?
Those are the bonds. There's a administrative fee, and then I want to say that's where JCI. We have to make a payment to JCI annually for the geothermal.
Okay. Geothermal.
Well, it's not for the geothermal. They did a bunch of other stuff. I think we only paid $105,000 for the geothermal. But maybe you could write up in the Thursday packet who we are indebted to and what it's for.
Yes, ma'am. We could do that.
I thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the next slide just shows the calendar with an update for the board meeting for the tax rate to be in September as opposed to August.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Trout.
I'm sorry, Ms. Pekoski. I had just one other question from the previous slide, the budget allocation by function. And the number 13, one of the things I don't know is because of the $5 million that we spent for the computers and of course, the other money that was spent in this month's packet. And what I was looking at, the BQ evaluations, staff development has got to be going up this year. Has that been allocated? Has that been increased at all? Could you tell me that? And if you can't, could you put that in the Thursday packet? Because I really think the staff development is going to be a major issue. I've been hearing from teachers and parents that much more is needed. So could you address that? Maybe Ms. Locha could get with you and Dr. Kearney.
And
Yes,
also,
ma'am.
because some of the staff development will be coming from Apple.
But I know, but it's not just, yeah.
No, we have a plan, Ms. Brigham. As you see, we increased it by 57,000. So we're doing a lot of the, we're trying to gauge and survey the teachers on remote learning, on the quality of it. And again, it's one to be a quality teacher in the classroom, but now that, yeah, and then it's one thing to have a child in the classroom and then a child at home.
Exactly. Dr. Galavis, you understand. I just was wondering because I know that that's going to be an issue. It's, you know, I just think, and if you've, the 57,000, you know, I think that is, thank you for the increase. And I think if you add the Apple, I guess, sir, if what I'm asking is if you could kind of, when it's ready, if you could just put it in a Thursday packet so I can, you know, quiet some of the fears I'm hearing from the teachers.
We will. We have a PD plan ready to go.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Pekarsky.
Well, that's it. Were there any other questions? If not, put these in the Thursday packet.
I do have just a clarifying question. I believe you made it very clear at the beginning of this presentation. Our budget, as presented right here, includes a 2% raise for all the district employees.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And the stipends.
Plus the stipends, plus, yes, the rest of the things, but it's a 2%, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You were going to say something about the last slide, Ms. Pekarsky?
No, that was the last slide. It just shows the calendar showing that we will be adopting the tax rate a month later than normal.
Thank you.
Which will be when?
Will be in September.
Okay.
TEA will notify us in August of our actual tax rate. And then in September, we'll be coming to you for approval.
Good enough. Thank you, Ms. Pekarsky. I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Sonia or Sergio, you want to take over now?
Sure, that's fine. I just had a comment on this particular item. Administration, with this 2% increase in the budget, have we gotten any information from the state that in fact they are going to shore up the funding that was promised last year in the biennium? And also, since we're going on a 2% increase, all estimates are that by next year, for this coming budget year, we may have a decrease in revenues from 8 to 33%.
Okay,
That's if the
compensation.
legislature does not act and give us extra funding.
The compensation is a 2% increase, but the total budget is 2.5% decrease
Right.
Oh,
from this
okay.
current.
Can you repeat it, please? You're cutting off. How much was the decrease?
Yes, ma'am. It's in one. I have some updated slides that'll be coming to you in this Thursday packet.
Good.
Let me get back to that number.
Board Record Coronado joined the meeting at 11:01.
Okay, so the current year, we're expected to finish at 63,881,000. The proposed budget for next year is 62,281,000, which is an approximately a $1.6 million decrease, or 2.5%.
Right.
So
just-
you're asking, the training that's going on right now is coming from Austin, from TASA, TASB, and TASBO. And that's one of the things that they're discussing is, will the state use the rainy day fund to shore up our revenues? Or how will they give us a delay? Will we have to wait for our payments? What will they do? But what they're expecting is for that to hit in 2022.
2022, okay.
Right, not next year, but the
Not
year
next-
after.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, for the next budget year, right? Not this coming one, but the next one.
Right, next biennium, yeah.
Yeah, the concern I have is that we have, guys, we have for this coming budget year, and there's been, I don't know if y'all got a copy of the a story that was written by a reporter from the Austin American-Statesman about a lot of superintendents that sent a letter requesting information and projections from the education agencies, is that we may have for this coming budget year it could be a reduction because of COVID-19. It's between 8 and 33%. So even if we say that we get lucky and we get 8% reduction, well, we've already reduced the budget this year by 2.5%. Is that correct, Ms. Pekarsky?
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
That,
Yes,
that includes,
I
and that includes our 2% raise to the employees plus the rest of the compensation adjustments. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we also estimated the revenues at a very low increase.
Yes, and I understand that we dropped the collection rate by about 2 or 3%. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mhm.
So basically that's reducing it by about 4 or 5% roughly, right?
Yes, sir.
So we may still see a little decrease. So just everybody understand that if the legislature doesn't shore up our funds, the following budget year, we may have to look at cutting 4 to 5% off our budget. So just that everybody understands. And if it's worse than that, like what that article indicated, a lot of them, they have to consider laying people off. Now, we hope that the legislature is going to act and shore up the money because, one, they have to shore up money for this year that they promised last year for the biennium. And obviously their resources are going to get dwindled down.
Mhm.
Tax rate collections aren't what they are. Certainly the oil revenue tax isn't what it is. So we're going to have a tight budget year. You know, we want to take care of our employees as well, but just want everybody to understand that next year for the budget year may be a really tough time. And come April of next year, if collections don't come in at least to 95%, obviously we're going to have to dip into the fund balance. And so just everybody.
Well, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Earls.
do you think we should delay that facilities assessment then and save that money?
Exactly.
Well, no, we've already entered into a contract. They've already started the facilities. And that came from the sale of the land. That's got
But I
nothing.
mean, it's still money that was in the general fund.
Yeah. Well, and I think we need it because part of it is detailing our long distance learning needs for their students. So I think we need to have that done.
And what about if we just cut off the lighting process that we already approved for those $5 million that we don't need it? That is, for my opinion, I don't consider this like it's something emergency.
Well, it's not
Or
fun.
essential.
I don't, right now, I think those items that we're suggesting, we really can't do anything about it because it's not part of the agenda.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
it is budget. That is very much budget.
And this is
We're
only a
talking-
presentation. It's not an action item.
No, but it could come back to the next meeting as action that, you know, we'd like to save some money instead of spend some money on things that aren't quite essential at this point, and maybe support our employees more strongly, because they're going to have a very tough time,
Well,
Yeah, very tough.
and
Well-
we need to make sure they're shored up more than a facilities assessment or, you know, lighting.
Okay. Well, Ms. Searles, do you suggest that we cut the laptops?
No,
Do you-
not at all.
Do you
Not
suggest
at
that we cut?
No.
we cut
Yeah,
the-
that's an effective use. Yeah, no, not at all.
Suggest that we cut then the connectivity.
No, I
access-
think the LED lighting is,
Okay, yeah, the LED lighting, we have indicated that it was a possibility in there, and it is not a for sure. It's still going to be brought back to the board
Okay,
when the amount is. But the majority of the money that we're spending is about 7 million for the connectivity and for the laptops. So it's not 5 million for the LED lighting. It's going to be about 2 million.
Mr. Payan, I agree with you. This is really off topic.
Yeah,
Let's stay,
Go ahead.
that was the presentation.
let's move on, ladies, please. And
Still in the same before item, we haven't gone to the next item, right? We're still in the,
Miss-
no, we're still finishing up on the budget presentation.
Mr. Payan,
Yes, sir. Mr. Levy.
Mr. Chair, sorry. I think echoing some of the concern, not knowing what's going to happen in regards to the next legislative session, I think it's important for us to get involved in that. The bigger thing here is some of these issues, whether it's the laptops, the connectivity, the lighting, I think we're looking at long-term in regards to some of those issues and not just a short-term in regards to the budget and reoccurring costs. These, some of the current things which, thanks to the district, has put that budget in place, which would allow us to still stay competitive. Those are reoccurring costs compared to others, which will help us long-term address some of the issues, but those aren't reoccurring. And so I think that's good to recognize.
Okay. Okay. Sonia, next item.
Yes, sir.
I just said here, you'll be taking over for the next item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Payan, for covering
you.
for me.
Item 4, Human Resources. A discussion and possible action regarding the 2020-2021 Compensation Maintenance Review, 2021 Extra Duty Stipend and Supplemental Pay Plan. Ms. Carrasco and Ms. Cadena.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Brigham?
Yes, welcome, Sergio. I'd like to I'd like to approve the, I'd like to make a motion, excuse me, to approve the 2% pay increase as stated in the budget already that was presented to us by Ms. Papaski.
And I-
Okay, can you wait a minute until they give us at least a brief presentation?
I will, sir. Thank you very much.
Because I do want to ask some questions about the stipends.
No problem, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I do have a first and a second. Continue, okay?
I just wanted.
What was the motion? Because the motion just said 2%. Is that the equity included in the equity adjustments?
Yes, Mr.
So everything that's being presented by administration, is that
Yes.
correct, Ms. Brigham?
Yeah. Yes, sir, that's correct. Hello, Ms. Luz.
Board President, are we timing this item or was that for, are we still timing the item or no?
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, that's why I want to ask every board member to please hold your questions until the end. I'm going to give everybody equal time and that we
Okay.
don't keep interrupting. So Ms. Cadena and Ms. Carrasco to make the presentation.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, the presentation was given last month.
Yes.
Yes,
You already have it. So are there any questions to Ms. Cadena and Ms. Carrasco regarding the compensation? And the stipends is another item, Mr. Coronado.
Well, it includes extra duty stipends on the agenda item.
But it's in the other.
Oh, I'm-
That's B.
Yes.
The first one is the 2%.
But it's also
Compensation.
pay.
Yes, I was doing just item A.
So I guess, do we have any questions for Ms. Cadena, Ms. Carrasco? 'Cause
Yeah, I have some, oh, Ms. Searles, you have a question?
I just want to clarify something is all. It's really not even a question. On page 93,
Okay.
it's got, the recommendation is for the athletic stipends, which is for, oh, you know what? Nope, forget what I'm talking about. That's the next agenda item. Never mind, sir, I'm sorry.
Have there been any modifications, Ms. Cadena and Ms. Carrasco, from when we last talked about?
Mr. Coronado,
Yes.
we provided you with an updated summary of cost estimates that was included as a backup. I believe at the time the board, based on the formal representation that was given last month, the board had asked for some adjustments in the technology area. And so those adjustments have been made as requested, and the updated summary of cost estimates is what's been submitted for your approval. Again, the total cost estimate is $1,030,397. However, it includes all funds. And as you note in Mr. Karski's presentation, it is $840,000 out of the 199. And that's percent model.
Okay. Now, anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Brigham?
Okay, just to clarify, that was 840,000, and that's for the cost model of 2%. Is that correct, Ms. Carrasco?
Correct.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
All right. Anybody have any other questions?
Well, I do because I'm confused, and I'm sorry, but I am. We've got 4A, which is discussion and possible action regarding the compensation maintenance review for 2021/2021 extra duty stipend and supplemental pay plan. Then on letter B, we've got discussion and possible action regarding the 2021 extra duty stipend and supplemental pay plan stipend changes. So, Ms. Crosco, could you tell me what the difference is one between the other?
I know that Luz Cadena spoke about some stipend changes in her presentation. And so there are some mention of stipends in the presentation that she provided. However, on the next item, I'm presenting to you some of the stipends that were not included in her presentation. I believe
Okay.
was mentioned in her presentation is the robotic stipend. That
Okay.
was in her, and she always talks about, you know, our master stipends or our academic stipends. And so on these that I'm bringing forth to you, these were some other ones that were brought in after discussion with Luz, and so I'm including them separately.
Okay, I understand. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Crosco.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. Hearing none, then I do believe then we have a motion before the board with respect to this item to approve the recommendations from administration with regard to the 2020-21 compensation maintenance review, to go ahead and approve that, including the extra duty stipend and supplemental pay plan. My question before we proceed to vote on the item is, Ms. Carrasco, these stipends, since we don't know what next year is going to bring to us and what these stipends will obviously, we'll have our counsel, our legal counsel, prepare something that these stipends would be conditional so that if they happen, that they're actually do the work, that they would be paid, and if not, that obviously there would be no payment in case we do go to distance learning, because some of these stipends obviously deal with a lot with the contact sports. So if we don't have contact sports or some of the other extracurricular items that may not happen, then those stipends would all be conditional and not paid if it doesn't happen, or partial if in fact they do. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct, Mr. President.
Okay, and our legal counsel, have we drafted something, or are we gonna have the employees sign something to that effect? Or we're just gonna do that by administrative regulation?
No, we're recommending that something be sent to the employees that receive stipends to let them know.
Okay. All right. So just a notice to them that they understand that these stipends would be conditional.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Miss Pekarsky and Dr. Galaviz, does this budget have an amount for the personal protective equipment and sanitizing of the classrooms, et cetera, and protecting of the employees and the students in case we were to go to school completely? And if not, if we do only from PK through 5 or so, does this include any of that?
As of today, no. I mean, but we have been using this, monies to buy disinfectant, buy what we need, buy, again, excessive amounts of gear.
Right.
We are putting together the cost. In fact, at the next board meeting, I'll have Mr. Sedesetis, our audit person, go over what we have been spending as we go into next year. As you know, our governor and our president want schools open. So we are putting a task force together with DAC and principals to go over sanitation stations. But as of today, this budget presented, no.
Okay.
Am I correct, Ms. Pekarsky?
Well, as you know, there's always, and don't tell the superintendent, but there's always a little bit of slack in the budget. And so we are, we know that we're gonna have to plan for something, but we don't know what that amount is yet. So as Dr. Galavi said, we're working with our internal auditor to figure out what those costs will be and include those.
Okay.
By the time it comes to you next month, it will have that amount in there.
Okay.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair.
Yeah, just a second, Mr. Rodriguez. Let me just finish on my comments, and I'll entertain other comments from the board. The things we need to consider is obviously these. I sure wish that the state leadership would give us an idea of what it is that we're going to be facing, what model, if we're going to come back to school full time for everybody in person, or if it's going to be a hybrid model.
Right.
Obviously, the issues we face, if it's the hybrid model, as Mr. Blanco seems to think, that the PK through 3rd or 5th grade would come in. The problem we have with that is if they keep the same reduction in class size of what they did for summer school of 10, we could accommodate more classrooms if the middle school and the high school do distance learning. However, we can't accommodate those kids with more teachers, because then we would need more teachers. And so that's going to be a really hard issue. The only way I see that we might be able to do so is if we limit the hours or split the kids. Some come in the morning, some in the afternoon with the same teachers under reduced class size, and then we limit the amount of classes to 4 classes in the morning, 4 in the second shift. But for that, we're going to have some kind of waivers in terms of what classes are going to be taught and what are not, and what are going to be excused. Same thing for the high school. I doubt we're going to have physical education this year or contact sports. The other issue is, of course, what we're going to do with those teachers. And there's if we do distance learning on at least part of it, we're going to have some individuals that we're not going to need to be here. My recommendation, obviously, to administration, and I've talked with this with Dr. Galaviz and Ms. Carrasco, is that we, some of these individuals that we, is that we repurpose them so that they don't, they're not going to be out of a job. There's obviously going to be a need to hire additional personnel for things such as security of protection, for personal protection equipment, and make sure that that is done. And I suggest that administration, I think they're looking into that, is to hire somebody to come in and teach not just our staff with respect to the maintenance, janitors on the cleaning and sanitizing, but other individuals that we may not need during the year if we go to partly distance learning, and how we can get them involved with other labor that we're going to need with respect to the protection issue on our students and staff. So like I said, Mr. Rodriguez, you're on the state and national boards. I urge the TASB board that maybe you send a letter, or at the next meeting that you all contact the governor and the TEA commissioner with respect to giving us a plan immediately as to what they think they're going to do. If we're going to go through a change in the calendar to a year-long learning, which is more productive to the COVID-19 issue, I think we ought to go to that. Then we're going to start late July, and we don't have a lot of time left. We need to start preparing our staff, our administration, our teachers, our principal. We need to start preparing for this, and I think it's getting here pretty late to start getting these preparations, depending where we go. So I urge that we do that. I don't know if the Far West Texas board can have an emergency meeting and provide a resolution. Region 19, we maybe send that letter to them, but as well as maybe to our representatives as to what's going on. So, we're running out of time here, folks.
We are. We're out of time.
So,
Mr. Coronel, I'm sorry.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Mr. Payan, you want to go first, or you want?
No, I just, as part of our resolutions, I think we need to also include in there that they address this issue of COVID, personal protection equipment, disinfecting and all of that, that the state would try to address that issue ahead of time also.
Yeah.
Make that part of the resolution that we present to the state and the federal government.
Exactly. And I think, if we can have that for the next special board meeting so that we can send out, and I'd like to see if we can have that special board meeting as soon as possible. I think we were looking at the 16th, but if we can do it earlier, that would be great, so we can send these letters out immediately. We're running out of time, guys.
We are. Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, can I have the floor now? Was that it, Mr. Payan?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. In regards to the legislative agenda, if there's any questions, I know Dr. Galaviz has been in some of the meetings with Commissioner Williams and others. We are having, I believe, for sure it's quarterly. It might be monthly with the commissioner, but I could ask him some of those questions and get feedback in regards to the state level, and then as well as the national level. But I would need some guidance from Dr. Galaviz and staff. What I did want to go back to is the fact that we did have some, and I know we're not on the budget item, but I would like to, we didn't get those comments from community members. And so I would like to get that feedback. I know we're already in the stipends area.
I agree with Mr. Rodriguez.
I do too.
We have some comments from the community, Sonia.
Dr. Galaviz and PIO?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, with that said, I think we need to start planning and include some money in the budget for this equipment, because we also need to start, even at minimum, start buying some of that You know, if we're going to go to a hybrid model, which would looks like everything going to happen, and if we do go PK through 8, we're going to need, just our district is going to need about between 100 and 200 teachers, and when they're depending what class size they're going to limit it. So the only way I see it of avoiding hiring this extra 100 or 200 elementary teachers is to split the students in the morning and afternoon. Otherwise, I don't know where we're going to get another 100 or 200 elementary teachers on the hybrid model.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Brigham.
I know one of the things, and I do think, I agree totally with you, we're behind. Because, you know, parents in the community are angst on trying to figure out what they're going to be doing. So as soon as we can do it in a special board meeting, I think, thank you for suggesting that. But one of the things also too, and this is totally back, and I don't know where I got this, but it's when you look at a 2-week model, like 10 days, right, for 2 weeks, and it would be, kids would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and 1 week, and Tuesday, Thursday, and the other week. The teachers go every day, and then you would have, just like you said, half the kids coming in at a time. So there's some type of all that things, and the trouble is with all what we're talking about is we're talking about absolutely adding additional stress to the parents and, you know. So
What
as soon
agenda
as,
item
Ms.
are you on?
Brigham?
yeah,
Are we talking about compensation or are we going off into?
I know,
Make sure.
I think we went down a rabbit hole, sir.
Yeah. So
Well,
I have a problem going back to compensation. Thank you, sir.
I have one comment, Mr. Chair.
All right, Ms.
We all
Brigham.
have to remember, we've heard this time and time again at every single meeting we go to, every convention. The safest place, the most wonderful place for a child is in a classroom with a teacher.
Yep.
And no one will dispute that. I think that we need to make every effort to make sure that our children get that. That's not just my thought or my opinion. That's proven fact, that's research-based. We need to make sure that these children have teachers and that the teachers have children to teach. We heard already from a teacher who said what we've selected to give them for the past month or two was absolutely inefficient. We need to do a better job, and I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, we've got to let our kids go to school. Whatever that equals, they need to be in the classroom. It's safe, it's healthy, it's good for them. So thank you.
And that's true. The only way to do that is whether we do it, you know, kids coming in the morning and some more kids in the afternoon, or if they come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and some Tuesday, Thursday, we're still looking at a reduced instruction time. And so we
Mr.
need
Chair.
We also have to remember we've got a lot of classroom space.
Hey, Mr. Blanco, can you help me out here?
Yeah, you all are getting.
Order.
If you want to have this discussion about school and structure and hiring, it needs to be a specific item on a future agenda. Now is not the time to do it.
Exactly.
All right, Mr. Blanco, we get the advice. It's just that that part of this needs to be budgeted in, depending what that structure is going to be for next year, including either protection, and I just don't see it in the budget. So, but we can leave it at that without having to discuss the structure. I'm just saying that I think we need to put some money in there with respect to the equipment that we're sanitizing. I'm just asking for the next special board meeting. We can always try to amend the budget before we do that. I need to, you know, my suggestion, and I would recommend that the board do this, is see if administration could come up with a plan on how much money we're going to need, because I don't see the state giving us immediate money right now, additional, at least at this point. We're going to need
And to that point, I agree with you, Sergio.
So I think to that end, I think we, maybe for the next board meeting, we can come up with a plan. And if we need to use some of the money from the health overage, then so be it. That might be a place we can look at to get some of the money.
Mr. Chair.
Steve, I'm not paying you for this because they have a first and second on compensation.
You all are discussing a stipend issue right now, not personal protective equipment or a plan for dealing with students coming back. You need to have an agenda item for that. It's very important. It's something that the community is probably going to be interested in. And having that discussion while you're supposed to be talking about stipends is really not appropriate.
Well, it is the budget and stipends for the compensation for this year.
You've moved off the budget. You're only talking about extra duty stipends and supplemental pay plan stipends.
All right.
That's all the has.
All right, let's move on then. Do I have a motion and a second on this item?
Yes.
sir.
All right. Any other further discussion or comments from the board? Hearing none. Sonia, please pull the board.
Yes, sir. Ms. Brigham,
Yes.
Mr. Coronado,
Yes.
Mr. Payan,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Searles,
Absolutely, yes.
Mrs. Trout,
Definitely, yes.
Ms. Iglesias.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 2, 4B.
Great job.
Discussion and possible action regarding the 2020-2021 extra duty stipend and supplemental pay plan stipend changes. Ms. Carrasco.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the extra duty stipend and supplemental pay plan changes for 2021 as recommended on page 93 by the administration.
I second.
I'm sorry, the second was Ms. Brigham?
Yes, dear.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Sonia, I'm sorry, everybody, but I've been talking before and I got the feeling that they can hear me good. I didn't make the motion first. That's okay. Then I second and no one hear that. Is that okay, my volume?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. Any further discussion on this item from the board?
I do have a quick question, Ms. Carrasco, if you can, in regards to the stipend, I know it's going to be varied, especially, are we addressing that in regards to this as extra duty stipends?
I'm working with Mr. Blanco and Ms. Mata to send out notices to the employees on notice that any activity that requires a stipend, if that activity does not take place for the school year 2021, then that stipend will not be paid. So we're looking at that, prorating it in case some of her portion of the activity takes place. The ones to you today are the increases recommended by Coach Brooks on the athletic stipends. I do have a breakdown on the dual credit stipends as to how they're going to be paid out depending on the number of periods that they teach. Girls who code and robotics, that's a new stipend. We've got some CTE stipends for the middle school that Ms. Andrews thought to go ahead and start some of those clubs at the middle school. And then we do have the band stipend. And so those are that I'm presenting to you today, in addition to the ones that were presented in the compensation presentation, and all this information, of course, has been provided to finance.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Ms. Searles.
I have kept up with our other districts in Region 19, and quite a few of them, Isleta has approved a $500 stipend for all their employees, in addition to their 2% increase. Socorro approved a $1,000 stipend for every employee, in addition to their 2% increase for midpoint. We've got, our sister districts here that are saying, we know it's going to be harder for you teachers. We know it's going to be harder for everybody. We're going to back you up financially with this extra boost. I have a problem saying that ours is conditional. That these employees need this. They need to know, and just as everyone does. You know, what am I going to get paid next year? And I think it's unfair for us not to just say, here's your stipend. This is, you'll figure out something, you're good people. We know you'll come through somehow, even if it's online. You'll teach the kids how to play online, or you'll make them learn the rules. Something will happen. I don't agree with these conditional stipends in uncertain times. I think that our employees deserve to be certain of what they're getting.
Ms. Searles, all of the academic stipends will be paid.
Well, I think the athletic too. If every single person in El Paso and Socorro's getting at least $500, Socorro's giving them $1,000. Why aren't we doing at least, say, give these people the confidence to know whatever your stipend is, we expect you to do something, but you will get that stipend.
Ms. Searles, our base pay is also higher than the other districts.
Well, that's a good thing. I feel very, very, very proud that we're able to do that, but I think we ought to give them the confidence that they're going to get that stipend no matter what. And I'll leave it at that. That's my personal feeling, that these are uncertain times. Don't make our employees have anxiety over whether or not they'll get their stipend. Because I know they'll step up to the bat. We don't have lazy employees. They're good people. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Earls. All right. Anybody else? All right. Then we have a motion before the board on this agenda item. That is to
Yes,
approve the recommendation of administration with respect to the 2021 active duty stipends under the conditions as outlined previously. Sonia, please poll the board.
yes, sir. Ms. Brigham,
Yes.
Mr. Coronado,
Yes?
Mr. Payan,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Searles,
Yes.
Mrs. Trout,
Yes?
and Mrs. Iglesias.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, board.
Thank
Welcome.
you, Ms.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Cadena.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Luz. Thank
Bye,
you.
Luz.
Bye.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Good to see you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Next agenda item. Bye-bye.
Yes, yes, sir. Item number 5, consent agenda.
I move
Recommend approval as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presenting with exception of item 5A1A.
Can you repeat that, please?
5A1A.
And I'll second that.
And
You're asking, hold a minute, everybody. Ms. Trout, you're asking to pull agenda item A1 and A8 for the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. The minutes from April the 8th.
And then you have a correction to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that item will be pulled. What about item number 8? What is your issue with item number 8?
It doesn't show the way that we voted in the printing agenda that I have here. And I remember that day that I voted no. I don't know, there's some other trustees that I voted no, but it's not stated here my vote.
Okay, you're talking about agenda item A1, right?
Yes, sir. It's 5, which is a consent agenda, business 1A, 1A.
That's fine. We're going to pull that one to make the corrections.
Thank
that
you.
you're requesting.
1A, April the 8th. It's a special board meeting minute. On
Okay, that's
page
fine.
number 9.
I know. I'm also asking now on item number 8. Why are you asking to
there
have
isn't
item?
an 8.
There's no 8, is it?
No, there's no A8.
1A.
Okay, hold on, everybody. Let me ask Ms. Trout.
It's,
Ms.
okay,
Trout,
the consent agenda, a business.
hold on,
or-
Ms. Trout.
Oh, yes.
Under 5A, you're asking for item number 1 to be pulled, right?
Yes.
Are you also asking for item 8?
No, A is an apple.
Okay, so just A1.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that item will be pulled. Anybody else requesting another agenda item on the
Yes, sir.
consent?
I'd
Yes,
like
sir.
A3, 5 and 7.
Okay, and Ms. Searles, we've had the agenda packet since last Tuesday evening. Were you able to contact administration on this?
Well, Mr. Coronado, yes, I did. I contacted on the monthly warrant list, and
Okay.
then due to the fact that we got this on Tuesday night and it's close to 500 pages, I called you frantically on Friday to let you know that I couldn't read 500 pages in that amount of time, with Monday being a holiday. So I called you on Monday and told you I had questions on 5 and 7, but I had already spoken to administration on the warrant list, A3.
Okay, so you do not want item A3 pulled?
Yes, I do. Yes, sir. I want to talk about what the answer they gave. It wasn't complete enough.
Okay, I will give you 1 minute on that. And under item number 5, what is the reason you're asking for that to be pulled?
I'd like to know why this wasn't included in the Apple purchase, and how does it fit with the one-on-one? It's a huge technology purchase on page 112, and I don't understand how we're buying Dell computers and yet spending $5 million to get Apple when they're apparently not compatible. So I was hoping someone could bring me up to date. And number 7, I'm wondering if we are going to have MUMIMO in our district, which is the multiple user, multiple input, multiple output antennas for our connectivity. And is that what we're wanting to put $114,000 more into?
Okay, and we're not able to get a hold of administration this morning?
No.
Okay. All right, I will give you 1 minute on that. The budget amendment, I'll give you 1 minute, but we've all
I think by
had.
board policy, we have 3 minutes.
Okay, I understand that, but you did have plenty of time to read the agenda item last week and the backup, and to call administration until Friday. That was 3
Mr.
minutes.
Coronado, I'm a really good reader, but
Yes.
423 pages to read between Wednesday and this morning is excessive.
Well, I understand that, but I was able to do it, and I know most of the board members seem to be able to do it. Like I said, I'm going to give you that time period. So we will pull agenda item 5A1 for Ms. Trout, 5A3, 5, and 7 for Ms. Searles, and I will give you a reduced amount of time.
And Mr. Chair,
Ms. Brigham.
item B6
And the reason for that, Ms. Brigham?
is I read I have to echo. I absolutely think 500 pages is a lot, and with the holiday. But yes, the reason for it, sir, is I have a question, because we're approving something that we don't even know exactly what they're saying yet. So I just have one recommendation. That's all I need, and I just need it on record. That's all, sir.
Was administration called on this item?
No, sir. To be honest with you, Mr. Rodriguez, when I read it the second time, I had it folded, and I had called on a previous item. And you know what? I resent. I do my homework, and you know what? I resent that if I have a question that I am held in abeyance, like a young child. I just have one question, and you know what? I think I have the right to ask it.
Well, the board has approved board operating procedures
true.
in regards to this, and we said in regards to the consent agenda that you need to call administration, so that way hopefully that could get clarified. And if those items don't get clarified, then so that's part of the due diligence of being a board member as well.
You're right, sir. You're right, sir. But I didn't realize exactly until I read it again, and it's just something
You know what?
clarification.
It's
Mr.
all-
Chair, on that, our board operating procedures say I get 3 minutes to talk on each item, not one. That's discriminating against me personally,
Well,
to
Ms.
give
Earl,
me 1 minute
Well,
instead of
Ms.
the
Earl-
3 by board operating procedures.
well, Ms. Earl, the issue is that under board operating procedures, you don't have any time on the consent agenda because you were supposed to contact administration beforehand.
And the consent agenda is supposed to be for items that are normal and every day.
And exactly, everyday items, not $114,985.26.
Okay,
That
that's
is
what-
not an everyday
I'm-
maintenance
You
thing.
know what? Can we just stop and it is what it is.
All right. That's why I'm giving you some time, Ms. Earl.
Yes, and Mr. Blanco, could you please come in and speak to this issue? I do not feel that we've been given appropriate time to speak, and we're wasting time arguing about it, honestly.
That's really up to you all as a board to decide how you want to run the meetings.
Do our board procedures say we get 3 minutes?
I believe that they do.
All right, Ms. Searles.
Okay.
I've made my decision. If you disagree with that's fine. Yeah, you didn't even call administration on some of these items, and I mean, some of these items obviously probably, could have read it. It wasn't on page 500 or 400 and whatever on some of these items. So I'm just saying we need to, and this keeps coming up regularly.
I don't think
on the
this is
board meetings, and this
transparency,
keeps-
though. And no, I always call. I do my homework. I'm quite an overachiever. I always call. There was not time afforded to call, and there's a holiday weekend in between.
All right, I'm giving you the time I've given you. We have a motion. I'd like to actually have another motion before the board. I'm going to pull items number 1,
Okay,
item number 3, 5,
Yep.
and 7. And that's it.
B6.
B6.
B6. All right. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, there was a first and a second.
Well, but the motion did not include the items that were being pulled, so I need to have somebody redo the motion.
I move.
And I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to include items on the agenda with the exception of 5A, 1, 3, 5, 7, and B6. Sonia, pull the board.
Yes, sir. Ms. Brigham,
Yes.
Mr. Coronado,
Yes.
Mr. Payan,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Searles,
Yes.
Mrs. Trout,
Yes?
and Mrs. Iglesias.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, agenda item A1, Ms. Trout.
Okay, I'm gonna be fast. As I was talking on this regular board, special board meeting of the minutes of April the 8th, and this item shows the way that we voted. It doesn't.
Which item?
It's item A, 5A, 1, A is an apple. Page 99.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, and the page 99, discussion and possible action regarding the approval of request of qualification 2020-08 District Facilities Master Plan for professional service for $264,000. I voted no that day. It doesn't show the way that we voted, so I would like to make that change.
All right, administration, if you will indicate under the voting as correctly as was held in the meeting.
Yes, sir. My mistake, sir. Thank you.
I
All right.
voted no as well.
Yes, it was a 4-3.
Okay, we will indicate the voting on that deal. And do I have a motion to correct or
I'd
to
like
add?
to ask another question. We've got $264,000 here. I thought it was $246,000.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. That was going round and round. I
Yeah.
don't remember.
I do made
Dr.
a,
Galavis, can you clarify?
Is it 246, Ms. Pekarsky?
Let me ask Christy, because I know she has everything memorized.
well, the minutes stated 264,000.
But I think they told us it was 246.
Oh, okay.
If I'm not mistaken, it was 246, yeah.
I think so.
Christy, can you give us the correct amount?
I'm looking it up. I don't have it memorized. I'm sorry.
As an awkward silence brews the room. Okay. Whether 1 minute or 3 minutes, what should we do? Gotta have fun. Gotta have fun with it, man. Too much negativity going on in the world.
Right?
Yep.
So either way, we'll amend it to the 4-3, and then we'll give the actual cost, and we'll put the actual cost in the board packet so we can
That
go
sounds
on.
good. Can
So-
we vote on that?
Then if there is
Yes.
then if there's a change in that amount, then adding the correct amount as well?
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Have a
So I
motion second on this agenda item. Will reflect the voting and also what the correct amount of the contract price is. Hold the board, Sonia.
I'm sorry, was there a first and second, Mr. Coronado? I didn't hear it.
I did move. Who seconded this?
Mr.
Mara.
Rodriguez, I think.
I did.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mr.
Thank you. Ms. Brigham,
Yes.
Mr. Coronado,
Yes.
Mr. Payan,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Searles,
Yes.
Mrs. Trout,
Yes.
and Mrs. Iglesias.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Agenda item A3.
Is the warrant list, I ask for an update on the agricultural building cost. We got, and thank you very much, Mr. Vasquez, an update on only the cost for the basic IDQ. What I'd like is to have a total cost beginning to end, including our original land purchase, the well, the site preparation, all the cost included from like the beginning, probably starting in 2016 to current,
Okay.
not what IDQ is. So I'd like to have that, please.
Okay, that's fine. That's not part of the warrant list.
That's it.
Requested
Well,
minutes.
that's what I had asked for and only
Mr.
got, yes, it was
Mr.
part
Chair.
of the warrant list.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to ask for that backup information as well. I guess it'll be shared with the board and also the minutes. I believe he already has.
We're
prepared
talking
with
about
board.
the warrant list,
Yeah,
Mr. Rodriguez.
Exactly. You're asking for more items. I'm asking for the items that the research that has been provided in regards to board members attending those meetings in regards to the influx of the cost of that building.
Well, my comment is that, yes, we could do that, Ms. Searles, but we've been, I think, providing the cost for a while, but we'll put something in the Thursday packet.
Thank you very much, sir.
I know Mr.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Vasquez does really good, keeps a good record, especially of that project, so.
Yes, he does. I thank you, and
All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve this item.
I move to approve the warrant list as presented.
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. Please, the board, Sonia.
Yes, Ms. Brigham,
Yes.
Mr. Coronado,
Yes.
Mr. Payan,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Searles,
Yes.
Mrs. Trout,
Yes.
and Mrs. Iglesias.
Yes.
Motion passes Board President, there was a note sent to me that 264,000 was correct on that other item.
Okay, so
Thank
that
you.
that will still reflect as reflected on the minutes that are
Yes,
presented
sir.
on the agenda item.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Next agenda item.
5A5.
My question was on page 112. We have a budget amendment for $24,618 to purchase classroom technology. My question is, if we keep spending money, I saw in the warrant list we had another $26,000 for Dell. If we keep spending money on our current technology plan, how is that going to fit with the new $4.8 million for the computers? And maybe someone could answer, you don't have to answer it right now, but if someone could answer that in a Thursday packet. It sounds like the two systems are not compatible. And so I'd like to know why we keep spending on one system when indeed it appears as though we're changing to another one. And that was my question.
So I'd like to introduce our new technology director, Dr. Oscar Rico. So he can address it now, or Mr. President, or we can do it in a Thursday packet.
That's
Um,
fine.
Go ahead, Dr. Rico.
Go ahead, Dr. Rico. We can.
Thank you. Thank you,
It's your
Mr. President, Dr. Galaviz, members of the board. Yes, Mr. Earls, because Northwest Early College was already on a one-to-one environment, they went ahead and did some technology investments into specifically computer science curriculum. That computer science curriculum was bought specifically thinking of their current one-to-one environment. So rather than having to repurchase all that curriculum at the request of the principal, because of their, as you know, their system is a lot different. They run on a different calendar. They run on a different system.
Yes, sir.
So they requested to keep their current environment moving forward and provided those reasons, not having to reinvest in that computer science curriculum, the fact that their teachers are rather satisfied with that environment, and that they were currently already following a one-to-one environment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms.
I understand. So it was a site-based decision.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And with that, I move to approve the budget amendments.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on agenda item 5A5. And thank you, Mr. Rico, for that explanation. Sonia, please poll the board.
Yes, sir. Ms. Brigham,
Yo, yeah.
Mr. Coronado,
Yes.
Mr. Payan,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Searles,
Yes.
Mrs. Trout,
Yes?
and Mrs. Iglesias.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 7.
If someone, Dr. Rico, if you could help us with the extra $114,000, was it determined by you that we needed to upgrade our firewall cluster?
Yes, Ms. Earls. So on the board item that you originally approved, that was before understanding that we were approved to go to a one-to-one environment. Our firewall protects from inappropriate use and access of our network. So now that we are going to add additional devices to our system, it was the recommendation of our engineering team over at Presidio that we do upgrade those components as well. We're also in the midst of, because of your approval to look at our infrastructure, of doing a network assessment. And this is also required under that network assessment, just to bring us from our legacy system, which we had before, right, to the new standards as provided by E-Rate in their 21st century paperwork.
All right.
And will we have the M-Box in 5G?
So we are increasing the usage when it comes with the spectrum. So that is the part of the component with the assessment, Mr. Earls. So we are going to look at industry standards and be sure that our district is up to standards when it comes to Region 19 and also with districts across Texas. So to answer your question, yes,
Yes,
that
sir.
is a standard across the state in public schools.
And could you possibly in a Thursday packet, give us, are we going to MBOX and 5G, the all wireless,
Most
which is multiple user, multiple input, multiple output antennas?
Most definitely, we will have that in the Thursday package.
Thank you, sir. And with that, I move to approve.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Brigham.
Yeah, hello, Dr. Rico. I just have a real quick question. The awarded amount was 279, 457, but the amount is 114. How come there's two different? Can you just tell me which one we're approving?
Yes, Ms. Brigham. So this is in addition to that other one. And this is just all the physical components for the upgrading of the firewall to the 6,000.
Okay. Understand now the minute you say addition. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brigham. All right.
I move to approve item A 5A7.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second on this agenda item. Sonia, please pull the board.
Yes, sir. Ms. Brigham,
Yes.
Mr. Coronado,
Yes.
Mr. Payan,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Searles,
Yes.
Mrs. Trout,
Yes.
and Mrs. Iglesias.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item B6, 5A, B6, 5B6 rather.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And Dr. Galavis, and board on page, it's on page 387 and 388. On 387, Dr. Galavis, under the last two bullets, it says the district will apply for a waiver for the following days of March 23rd to 27th as closed preparing, and from March 30th to May 22nd as closed instructing. I was just going to ask you, sir, when you put in those waivers, if you could put those waivers as they presented to TEA in a Thursday packet.
Yes, ma'am.
And the last thing, Dr. Galavis and board on page 388, I was very, I read the FAQ of attendance and enrollment, and it was very, it answered a lot of my questions about closed instructing, closed preparing, and closed temporary. I thought it was a very good thing from TEA. That's all I had, sir. I just want to make sure we got it in the Thursday packet. Thank you.
All right. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I go to approve item number B6.
All right. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay.
I have a motion and a second on this agenda item. Sonia, please pull the board.
Yes, sir. Ms. Brigham,
Yes.
Mr. Coronado,
Yes.
Mr. Payan,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Searles,
Yes.
Mrs. Trout,
Yes.
and Mrs. Iglesias.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Takes us to the next agenda item.
Adjournment, sir.
Did not.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I just, if we could put those items on the next one, we're gonna have to approve the resolutions before the 15th. So if we could have that special board meeting approve those resolutions in the legislative agenda, as well as some of the concerns that you brought up and everybody else was bringing up on in regards to next school year.
Administration, Sonia, would you please, after we're off, try and get a date and poll the board to see what days they can attend for this next.
Yes, sir. I will do.
And the last thing, I wanted to wish Mary Iglesias a happy birthday.
Yay.
Yay, Mary, happy birthday.
Thank you. And Mondo as well. Mondo's birthday was on the
Oh, no.
20th.
Right. Happy birthday.
Happy,
Thank you.
happy 30th, Mary, and happy 50th, Mondo.
I think you got it reversed, but yeah, 30 with 35 years of experience.
Right. Happy birthday to both of you.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday, guys.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, guys.
All right. Thank you, board, for a good meeting.
12:07.
All right. We'll look forward
All
to
right.
the
Thank you. Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye, happy birthday.
Thank
Be
you.
safe.
Thank you, bye.